I was not going to dedicate another video to Bomani Jones. I briefly mentioned him in the video about Chris Bosh earlier this morning, but I found more baseless claims that Bomani Jones made to Dan Le Batard. So I figured that we would go ahead and address this. Bomani Jones. Bomani Jones, he reminds me of that troubled child. You know, that kid that you knew growing up, that parents and teachers, they always talked about his potential. If little Joey would just get off the drugs, he could be CEO of a Fortune 500 company someday. He has so much potential that he's just wasting. Bomani Jones really does have so much potential. He is an eloquent speaker. He's intelligent. Now, there's a huge difference between intelligence and wisdom. Bomani Jones has intelligence, but he's lacking in the wisdom department. His potential is being wasted because he cannot get off the most addictive drug of all: victimization, wokeism. Once someone is brainwashed in the art of victimization, there is not a rehab in the country that can fix them. You would think that after all of his failures, Bomani Jones would realize the propaganda that he's pushing is not working. It's not drawing an audience. You would think ESPN would realize this too, but we all know why that hasn't happened. It is against company policy at ESPN to fire anyone who's not white. I have never seen someone in media fail as many times as Bomani Jones and continue to get jobs. This dude's getting a new weekly show on HBO. What the hell are they thinking? No one has ever watched a show hosted by Bomani Jones. He was given a national platform on ESPN Radio. It was the lowest rated show in the history of the network. ESPN moves him to television. He fails again. The reason Bomani Jones is a failure is because he alienates 70% of the country with his mentality on race. He doesn't have the ability to look at things objectively. Everything is always viewed through the lens of race. I will give you two of the most recent examples. I'm going to replay the first one that I played in the video this morning. Roll the film.
What changes here, Bo? What has to change? What can change? What won't change?
White people. Like, I just don't know why people try to make this far more complex than it is. What's the problem? White people. Now, not every single individual white person. No. But in the macro and the aggregate, who are the ones that are making these decisions? White people. Who are the ones that won't change their decision making? White people. Who are the ones that only do anything in a different way when it comes to these matters at the threat of litigation? White people. So I need to ask y'all, what is it that can change? Y'all the ones that know these white people. Y'all the ones that be hanging out with these white people. Y'all the ones that know the ones that pretend to be such good people and then make all the same decisions as everybody else. So I don't have that answer there.
Now, I'm not an expert in media. I have never conducted focus groups on what the average person wants to watch and hear and doesn't want to watch and hear. But thinking with the logical part of my brain, I'm going to go out on a limb and say when you constantly denigrate 70% of the population, it is not a recipe for success in television or in media. Now, of course, the media itself is not going to believe that. They don't want you to believe that. ESPN believes denigrating white people is a recipe for success. Outkick reached out to ESPN for comment about Bomani Jones and his commentary. Now, I don't always agree with Outkick, but at least there's a semblance of actual journalism on the site. Bobby Burak, he's one of the better writers over at Outkick. He asked ESPN questions a journalist would ask on a story like this. One of those questions: what would happen if an employee broadly claimed another race was the sole cause of a perceived problem? Fair question. ESPN's answer: they declined to comment, which shouldn't be a surprise. I always say you can't defend the indefensible. It is impossible to defend Bomani Jones, yet ESPN, they continue to endorse his propaganda. Now, they don't vocally endorse it, but they endorse it by giving him a platform and continuing to give him a platform. This dude always makes headlines for all the wrong reasons. Anytime we talk about Bomani Jones, the conversation's always negative. Now, it would be one thing if it was leading to better television ratings. At least in that circumstance, ESPN would be able to justify keeping him on the payroll. But Bomani Jones will make headlines and his ratings actually get lower. I don't agree most of the time with Stephen A. Smith, but there are instances where I will mention him on the channel for something positive. The same goes with LeBron James. Hell, I have even made a video where I found something Jamel Hill said that I agree with. Now, I know I can be harsh on these SJWs sometimes, but most of the time it's lighthearted. We're just having fun. I don't think Stephen A. Smith's a bad guy. I think Jamel Hill's misguided, but I don't think she's evil or full of hatred. I actually had some hope with Bomani Jones a couple of weeks ago when he endorsed Curt Schilling for the Hall of Fame, even though Curt Schilling called Bomani Jones a racist several years ago. At the time, I thought maybe Bomani Jones is turning a corner. Maybe he's being objective. Nope. Here we are again, having the same conversation. Check out this next clip. Bomani Jones. He is claiming that NFL teams hire black coaches for the sole purpose of having them lose.
He hired the black dude to lose. And this is a theme that the NFL has. I can list you some more. David Culley in Houston was hired to lose. Raheem Morris in Tampa Bay was probably hired to lose. And they messed up and had like one good season and nobody knew what to do, which is kind of similar to what I think is going on with Flores, where he was like, I ain't coming down here to lose. But the idea that an owner went to a coach and said, I want you to lose games could cost Stephen Ross his team. Like, I don't know if the other owners of the league can afford for them to show that dirt in their era of gambling, right? Like, the thing about gambling at the casino is nobody's trying to make sure the game is played straight harder than the casino, right? Like, they're the ones trying to prevent the fix. The NFL is now the casino in this regard. They have to make sure that the fix is not in. And Stephen Ross is basically saying, I want us to go out here and lose every game, and I will incentivize you to come out here and lose every game. And by the way, was then ultimately going to fire him for losing all those games, and then would say that the 100 G's per loss was the reason that they did it, and you got paid handsomely for doing it. So yeah, this man might wind up losing his team.
Let's address David Culley first. No one was winning in Houston this season. No one. You could have had Bill Belichick on the sidelines. The Texans still were going to win 4 games. David Culley was not hired to lose. He was hired to rebuild. He had been a part of rebuilds in Philadelphia and Kansas City. He wasn't fired because he lost. It was expected that he was going to have a losing season. He wasn't fired because he was black and he lost. He was fired because he didn't share the same vision as the McNairs. Now, he's lucky, in my opinion. The Texans are a dump of an organization. Bomani Jones, he claimed Raheem Morris was hired to lose in Tampa. I don't know how. John Gruden was doing a damn good job losing himself before the Bucs hired Raheem Morris. What happened in his second season? Oops, Bucs win 10 games. So much for losing. Was Dirk Cutter hired to lose in Tampa? When he got there, the Bucs hadn't had a winning season in 5 years. Was he hired to lose? When Tampa fired him after 3 seasons, did they fire him over race? Dirk Cutter's white. I didn't hear anyone crying race when he got fired. It is easy to paint the false narrative that NFL teams hire black coaches for the sole purpose to have them lose. But you have to put this in perspective. 99% of the time, what do teams with head coaching vacancies have in common? They all suck. They're losers. They're losing seasons. You're walking into a shitty situation and you're being tasked with turning things around. Playoff teams aren't looking for coaches. They have a coach. It is rare for someone to walk into a head coaching job on a winning team. So, of course, you're going to struggle, especially in your first season. They're not struggling because the team wants them to lose. They're struggling because the team sucks. You can make this same case with white coaches. Was Joe Judge hired to lose in New York? Was Urban Meyer hired to lose in Jacksonville? Was Vic Fangio hired to lose in Denver? The Broncos, they hadn't made the playoffs since they won the fucking Super Bowl. Did they hire Vic Fangio just so they could lose some more? I blame Dan Le Batard a little bit for this too. Why the hell is he not pushing back on Bomani Jones? It's not like his claims are that difficult to disprove. Dan Le Batard doesn't do it because he's afraid to be labeled a racist or he agrees. Either way, it's bullshit. Professional sports teams have been accused of tanking many times in the past. John Gruden and the Raiders, they were accused of tanking in 2018. Dolphins accused of tanking in 2019, and according to Brian Flores, that's exactly what they were doing. Now, it happens more often in the NBA. Hell, the Philadelphia 76ers, they tanked 3 straight years. You know what that used to be called? Rebuilding. But in the mind of Bomani Jones, it's racist. Now, I will agree with Bomani Jones on one point. He mentioned something that I hadn't thought about. Like I said, the dude is smart. If he could get his head out of his ass, he would have a great career in media. Now, towards the end of the clip, he mentioned the NFL needing to get a grasp on teams purposefully losing games due to the amount of money gambled on the league. And he's absolutely right. I have no reason not to believe Brian Flores claimed that he was paid to lose games. Now, I don't know if it's true, but Brian Flores, he seems credible. That doesn't mean the Dolphins hired a black guy to lose. It would have been the same thing if the head coach was white. Now, that being said, the league needs to get a handle on this if it's true. One of the reasons the NFL is so popular is because the games are so much fun to gamble on. The NFL has openly embraced gambling. Now, with that comes responsibility. And that responsibility is making sure the playing field is level between the bettors and the sports books. So, I agree with Bomani Jones in that aspect, but everything else he said was bullshit. All right, let me know what you guys think. Bomani Jones, once again, showing his lack of wisdom. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.